In today's Tanya, we're beginning to answer the question of what is the unique mission of the Beinoni? How to rid the Beinoni of this inferiority complex that the tzaddik is the real deal and they're just the runner-up. As we're beginning a passage, a quote from the Zohar HaKodesh to delve into the answer. So to answer the previous question, we need to first examine the teaching of the inspired child, who is a character that the Zohar speaks about. He's the Yanuka. Okay, so he's like this prodigy type child. In the Zohar on the verse, and this is a verse from King Solomon, from Shlomo HaMelech. A wise man has eyes in his head. And the Zohar is like, I'm sorry, but what's the novelty there? We know a wise man has eyes in his head, according to the Zohar. And what other place would a man's eyes be, other than in his head? Might they be in his body or his arms, such as Shlomo, the wisest of all men, right? King Shlomo was the wisest of all men who ever lived. That he had to write this verse, right? Letting us know that a wise person's eyes are in his head. Like, what's it coming to teach us? The Zohar says the verse has the following implication. What's the real deeper meaning? We've learned that a person should not walk 4 cubits without his head uncovered. We learned that in Gemara and Kedushin 31a. And what's the reason a person can't walk 4 cubits? Talking about a man, a Jewish male, without their head covered. It means the Shekhinah, the divine presence, rests on his head. Interesting, right? The Shekhinah, the divine presence, where does it rest on a person? On their head. And the eyes and words of every wise man are on his head. Meaning not just in his head, but they're focused on his head. That's where their intention, that's where their main focus is. Meaning to say, he's focused on that which rests and remains on his head. So what does it mean a wise person's eyes are in their head? It's that they're focused on their head. And what's resting on their head? The Shekhinah, the divine presence. That is their focus. And when his eyes are there, and he's conscious of the Shekhinah's presence, he's conscious of God resting. By the way, I'm not trying to say that God only rests on a male. God forbid. Of course not. Of course Hashem rests on a female. In fact, even much more readily, because women in Judaism are seen as incredibly holy, and the Shekhinah rests on them much easier. For example, men, for the Shekhinah to rest on them during prayer, they need to be in a quorum, in a minyan. Versus a woman, when she prays alone, the Shekhinah automatically is with her. Okay, and so when his eyes are there, and he's conscious of the Shekhinah's presence, he will be aware that the flame lit above his head is in need of oil. Right now that he's conscious of the Shekhinah, he's like, wow, what does the Shekhinah need to continue to be there? Right? The Shekhinah is so beloved to me. The Shekhinah is the divine feminine. It's, so to speak, the way we relate to, we talk about Shechinte, Kichibruchu v'Shechinte, right? Hashem and the Shekhinah, they're married. It's the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And so when a person's aware of, like, wow, God's presence is with me, the Shekhinah is with me, it's so sacred and so special that they want to keep it there. It's like, okay, and it's in need of oil. So a person's body is a wick with a flame lit above it. Okay, so the body is the wick, and the Shekhinah is, God's presence is the flame. And King Shlomo, right, the wisest of all men shouts out, don't allow oil to be lacking from your head. That's what he's saying in the same source as we learned earlier, that he says, a wise man's eyes are in his head, because the flame on his head needs oil, right? So if I'm going to keep the divine Shekhinah, this flame, this godly flame connected to my wick, to my body, I'm going to need oil. And what's oil? Good deeds. The way I keep this divine fire alive and I keep the Shekhinah with me is through oil, is through good deeds. It was concerning this concept that the verse says, a wise man has eyes in his head. A wise man is concentrated on the divine presence being with him at all times. They're not just concentrated on what time it is and how much money I have, what other people think of me. No. A wise person is like, ooh, is the Shekhinah with me right now, right? What can I do to keep this divine fire alive? And that is going to be to add oil, to add good deeds, because good deeds is going to draw that holiness upon myself. Is going to be that oil to allow this fire to continue burning, which of course is also connected to my body. It's bringing my body up into a state of holiness. Thank you for taking the time to explore today's Tanya together.